This week, live on Nashville Now, look for Doug Stone.
I need a jukebox with a country song.
And Sawyer Brown.
Time, it's just something you've got to do.
Ricky Skaggs.
Life's too long to live like this.
And Aaron Tippett.
Something, are you following it?
That's this week on Nashville Now, right here on TNN.
The following is a special presentation on TNN, the Nashville Network.
Now we're taking you live to the Daytona Hilton in Daytona Beach, Florida, for this special edition of Inside Winston Cup Racing. And joining us, the seven-time NASCAR Winston Cup champion, Richard Petty, seven-time winner of the Daytona 500 by STP, and a pretty good run out there this afternoon, finishing 16th. I know it wasn't what you wanted, but not too bad under all the circumstances.
Well, under the circumstances, it probably wasn't too bad. We ran pretty good, and if everything had went good, we could have probably finished the first 8 or 10, but we got in one of those wrecks when everybody crashed up the backstretch. I let off, and the man behind me didn't, and first thing you know, I was in the wreck too. So, that cost us a lap right there. We wound up 2 laps down, and, it was just one of the days that we run all day, and everything as far as the car went good, the circumstances just didn't go good.
Well, you've had a hectic couple of weeks here as you kick off your fan appreciation tour for 1992.
It's been really busy, Ned. You know yourself, Daytona is the busiest race we run all year. It's a more social event, I think, than it is a race a lot of times. And then with the fan appreciation tour, getting everything cranked up, instead of doing, 3 or 4 things a night, I was doing 5 or 6 things a night. So that kept us pretty busy, but I don't think it took anything away from the race. It was just circumstances today that beat us more than anything else.
Well, Richard, let's get right to some questions. We have Mike from Watertown, New York, that has a question for you.
Yes, I'd like to ask the King if he could tell us the most memorial race he ever raced in.
Wait a minute, let me get you tuned up here. Okay, go ahead.
Could you tell us the most memorial race that you ever raced in?
I don't know, there's been a bunch of them. I guess I'm gonna have to go back to the last one I won, okay? And say that right now that's probably on your mind more than anything else, because we won it July the 4th in front of the President of the United States. They won it on the last lap from Cale Yarborough, and it was one of the most exciting races that I've been in. So from that standpoint, I guess that's one that I'm going to remember a whole lot. Richard, the audience here and those watching on television wouldn't have seen it. I was at the drivers' meeting this morning, and you were introduced to the drivers as the Grand Marshal, the honorary Grand Marshal of the Daytona 500 by STP today. They gave you a standing ovation. Yeah, that was a real tribute. It kind of got my goat, I guess. I wasn't expecting that. They come back there and want me to get up and say a few words, and I'm not too good at that part of it. And I said, no, y'all just go ahead and do what you got to do. And then when the drivers gave me a standing ovation, I really, really felt humble. And I just sort of wanted to sneak into the ground there where they couldn't see me, but it really, deep down, it really, really makes me feel good.
Jerry from Barberville, Kentucky has a question from here at the Daytona Hilton.
Richard, I would like to have your professional opinion on where you think the future of stock car racing is going.
I don't know. If we continue to do what we're doing right now, then it'll continue to grow at the same pace as what we're doing. I can envision that if we wanted to go to the echelon of what we think it can do, then we're going to have to get more organized. I think NASCAR, the drivers, the car owners, and the tracks and stuff are going to have to sit down and say, okay, guys, we're going to have to make a little bit more combination for all of us. Right now, all of us are independent contractors, and in being independent contractors, we all go our own way, and a lot of times we don't wind up at the same place at the same time. So, from forever how big it wants to get, it can go as big as, football, baseball, basketball, all of that stuff. NASCAR racing can be that big, and if we can get our job together, then in the next 6, 8 years we can get that big.
Our telephone number is 1-800-452-8747, and we're talking live with Richard Petty from Daytona Beach, Florida at the Daytona Hilton Hotel on South Atlantic Avenue. And Jimmy has a question.
Yes, Richard,
I've noticed you following your father's footstep in racing, and Kyle's following your footsteps. If when, do you think that Kyle might drive car number 43?
I don't really know. It won't be in the next couple of years, I'll put it that way. Yeah, he's got a real good situation with Felix Sabatis, and Coke sponsors the car for the next couple of years. And, you know, being they've got a good combination, and we don't want to infringe on that part of it. But, you know, the next 4 or 5 years, I can see Kyle coming back home and maybe taking over Petty Enterprises, not only from the driver's standpoint, but maybe from the business standpoint also.
Now, you mentioned Coke. Of course, Mellow Yellow is one of the brands of Coca-Cola Company. Now, you're deeply involved with Pepsi. How do we arrange that? What do we have when we go to the Petty house for dinner?
Well, it's according to where we go to his house or my house. Okay, we go to my house, we have Pepsis. But you know, it's just a situation that it worked out that way. You know, at one time, Kyle drove a Pontiac, and I drove a Pontiac, and then he got off with the Whizboards and started driving a Ford, and you know, then he got back with Pontiac. But the Coke deal came about not because of Richard Petty or Kyle Petty, but because of Felix Sabatis made the situation work. And you know, so we're kind of competing with each other on the racetrack and off the racetrack also.
Okay, we have a phone call from Ron from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Go ahead, Ron.
Hi.
Hello, how you doing?
All right. Hey, I'd like to say congratulations to Davey Allison.
Yeah.
And I'd like to ask you, Richard, why don't you wear flame protective gloves when you're racing?
Wear what?
Protective gloves.
Oh, okay. I tell you, it's just a habit, and it's probably a bad habit. You know, when I first started racing 34 years ago, they didn't have gloves, and every time I tried to wear gloves, I wore blisters on my hand. And it's just a deal of a habit more than anything else. I've tried to wear gloves and stuff, but my hands sweat and I wear blisters, and I don't get into that. I know when Kyle first started, I went out and got him all the whole deal, and one of the first things I got him was a pair of gloves. So definitely he should be wearing them at all times.
Our phone number is 1-800-452-8747. Call us right here at the Daytona Hilton in Daytona Beach, Florida, and we'll be back with Richard Petty right after this.
Viscosity breakdown would mean to me engine failure. Engine failure would be the loss of our investment and the loss of the race. And with Pennzoil, I don't have that problem. I don't have to worry about it. Pennzoil outperforms any leading motor oil against viscosity breakdown. For my money, Pennzoil is the best engine protection I can buy. Performance, protection, quality, that's what Pennzoil means to me.
Over its life, a Motorcraft battery delivers enough energy to light up a small park, like Candlestick Park. Shouldn't you install that peace of mind? Motorcraft quality parts from Ford. A Motorcraft spark plug has to fire 500 times a minute. Over its life, that's a spark 5 miles long. Shouldn't you install that peace of mind? Motorcraft quality parts from Ford.
All this year, TNN explores America. The beautiful, the historic. From state to state, you'll see the magnificent and feel the pride of this great land. It's all here when TNN explores America.
The climax of Speed Weeks for 1992, the 34th annual Daytona 500 by STP. It was an exciting race, a lot of good racing, but also a lot of disappointments for some drivers. For highlights of the Daytona 500 by STP, let's go to Randy Pemberton.
Okay, guys, let's go. Crank them up.
The running of
The 34th annual Daytona 500 saw the beginning of Richard Petty's Fan Appreciation Tour and a couple of Junior Johnson Fords on the front row. Sterling Marlin led the field of 42 around the 2.5-mile tri-oval in his Maxwell House Coffee Ford Thunderbird, although he was willing to swap the lead with teammate Bill Elliott in the early going. That is until the first round of pit stops put Davey Allison in his Texaco Haviland Ford out front on lap 59. From there, Allison would lead the freight train of Fords, and it seemed as if nothing would slow this race down except possibly Mother Nature, as rain brought out the first caution of the afternoon. That is until Bill Elliott, Sterling Marlin, and Ernie Irvin ran 3 wide off of turn 2 and down the backstretch. The two would make contact. Irvin and Elliott, 13 cars in all, would go spinning through the grass on the backstretch, including number 43, Richard Petty. Fortunately for Davey Allison, he was able to miss the melee, and when the race went green, the chase was on. Davey against the remaining cars in the field. And that's all they could do was chase over the final 200-plus miles. After Michael Waltrip's Pontiac blew up with just a few laps left, it was up to Morgan Shepherd. But he had nothing for Davey Allison, and Allison would take home the biggest win of his racing career. The 1992 Daytona 500 by STP was the beginning of the end in the greatest career in stock car racing history, that of King Richards. It was only fitting that he and his father were the only father-son combination to ever visit Victory Lane for the Daytona 500. But now there's one more, Bobby Allison and his son Davey.
And our congratulations to Davey Allison, $244,000 richer. Richard, you never did win that much in a race.
I hadn't run that much a year. I hardly. We was talking about that. I've won the first 3 or 4 races I won down here. I was 16th today and won like $35,000. The first 3 or 4 races I won down here, first 3 or 4 I won, I never won that much in any one of the races. The most I ever won here was $90,000, and that was 81. So, you know, the monetary deal is just so much different now than what it used to be. I think my father won the first race here, and I paid $19,000, and that was unheard of in those particular days.
We're going back to the phone lines, and Patty from Torrance, California is on. Hello, Patty.
Hi, Ned. Hi, Richard.
Hey, how you doing?
We go to Phoenix every year, and we're really looking forward to seeing you this year, Richard. Will you be inside the infield signing autographs?
Yeah, probably will. Don't mean to, but I get caught in there, and I'll probably be there, okay?
Jason from here in the state of Florida is on.
Yeah,
Jason?
Hey, Richard, I'd like to say you're the greatest driver I've ever seen, man. And my question is, when do you think you'll see Kyle up there in Victory Lane in the Meliella car for the Daytona 500?
Well, they got Rockingham next. He's pretty good at Rockingham. You know, he's won the last 2 years there, I think, in the spring. And set on pole in the fall race, I guess, and had a problem this last year, both years. And it seems to be one of his better racetracks, so I can't see why that's going to change. So the next race will probably be Kyle.
Chris from Pittsfield, Massachusetts, from the audience here at the Daytona Hilton.
Richard, I was just wondering, after you retire and continue on as a car owner, if you'll continue your relationship with STP, and also what you would be looking for in a driver when you did put somebody in your car. Well,
hopefully the connections we have with STP and Pontiac and most of the other people that we deal with will continue. You know, everything looks that way. We've talked about it, and it's pointing in that direction. As far as, you know, what kind of driver we look for, I think it'll be a whole lot up to STP and Pontiac to give me like a list of what they're looking for, whether they're looking for a rookie, whether they're looking for somebody to drive a race car, whether they're looking for somebody that can drive a race car and do PR or whatever, just whatever their deal is. And once they throw it on the table, then I'll probably just pick my own driver. So I don't know yet. We'll just sort of get down to that probably June or July this coming year.
And I'm sure that he'll stick with the goodies because you're going to need those not only this year but next year as well. You happen to have one in your pocket.
I just happen to have them in my goodies with me. And if you saw that deal with me spinning around over there, if I'd had time, I'd have took a couple of these, but I didn't have time. But we'll probably need these all next year, all this coming year, just to take care of all the traffic and stuff that's going on. But once I get another driver and stuff, I'll probably have a lot more headaches than what I have right now.
Well, Richard, we have a telephone call from Cindy from Tyler, Texas. Cindy?
Hi. With this being your last year in Winston Cup competition, which race of this year do you think will be your most memorable?
Well, if I happen to win one, that would be it, I guess. But, you know, it's really going to be hard to say. Daytona's over with now, so, you know, we'll go to Rockingham next, and then we'll go to Richmond, and, you know, all of them. Then Daytona's not quite that big. We come back to Daytona in July, and that's really going to start the final tour of what we're going to do, because that's the final time we're going to be at each racetrack. Then I guess I'll probably start thinking about it a little bit more, but I guess it'll all really build up to the Atlanta race. That's what we're trying to do, is get everything swell and get it to go and end it all with a big party and the whole deal at Atlanta. And, you know, if you could ever win one of the races between now and then that would be a highlight. But if we don't win a race, then I think Atlanta's going to be the highlight of my whole career.
And folks, don't count him out to get in victory lane in 1992. And we'll be back with the King. More phone calls and more participation from the audience after these messages.
You're about to see how Goodyear is changing all-season driving right before your eyes. Introducing AquaTread, only from Goodyear. AquaTread's advanced design channels water out of your way for dependable all-season traction, especially in the rain when you may need it most. AquaTread, the newest reason why we say the best tires in the world have Goodyear written all over them.
Genuine draft. For those who've discovered its real draft taste, the world is a very cool place.
He grew up, like his father, with a fascination for racing and an understanding that winners must be thorough. That's why Michael Andretti chooses the complete protection of Haviland Formula 3 motor oil to fight heat stress, starting friction, and engine dirt. For Michael, Haviland's been part of growing up. Of course, some kids grow up faster than others. Haviland Formula 3.
Hello there, this is Lori Ann Crook on location for Celebrities Off Stage.
And I'm Mark Herndon of the group Alabama, and we're about to go wild blue.
We'll find out how Mark really gets away from it all. Plus, rare at-home visits in Fort Payne with the rest of country supergroup Alabama. Jeff Cook, Teddy Gentry, and Randy Owen. Join us.
Celebrities Off Stage, Wednesday at 8 and 11 Eastern on TNN, the Nashville Network.
We are live from the Daytona Hilton on South Atlantic in Daytona Beach, Florida, and our guest is seven-time NASCAR Winston Cup champion, Richard Petty. Terry from Flint, Michigan has a phone call for Richard.
Hi, Richard. I'd just like to say that it's an honor to be able to speak with you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And my question, since this is your last year and Daytona's over with, if there is one race that would be very prestigious for you to win, to be number 201, which one would it be?
Any one of them. I'll start at Rockingham and I'll end up at Atlanta. It doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. To me, every one of them is prestigious, and especially if I win it, it's really going to make it prestigious.
Michelle from Westford, Massachusetts is on the line.
First of all, I'd just like to say, Richard, that I hope we see you in Massachusetts real soon.
All right. We might be up there in a couple of years anyway.
And my question for you tonight is, do you believe that the class of racers in this age is more or less competitive than the racers from the earlier days?
Do what now?
Are the races more competitive today than in the earlier days?
Yes and no. I'll explain that. What makes competition is how good people are over the other people. And if I'm good enough, I've got no competition. All right, right now, there's nobody good enough to excel over everybody else, so that makes a lot of competition. Back when Ned and myself used to run, we'd run 8 to 10 races, and he'd be so much better for 8 to 10 races than I wasn't competition to him. Other times, it'd be just the opposite. So right now, there's nobody that really stands out, so that makes the competition look that much better.
Now, I don't think I ever had a big advantage over him for 8 or 10 races. We had a lot of
maybe
good,
4 or 5 dirt track races, okay?
We did have a lot of good times together, and certainly something that I'll cherish forever. Keith from Asheville, North Carolina, in the audience here has a question.
Yeah, looking back on your past years in racing, I was wondering what advice you could give to a young driver coming up from the northeastern area to get to the Winston Cup circuit someday.
You know, that's a tough question. You get asked that question probably as much as any question that I have asked to me. It's hard to say. Everybody got here in a different way, different circumstances. Most all of them come through sportsmen or modifieds and made it from there. But you know, you're talking about the Northeast. Pete Hamilton came from the Northeast. He drove for us and won 3 races in 1970, and Daytona was one of them. You know, the Bodine boys are from up in that area. You know, Richard boys. You know, you've got a bunch of good people in that area, but they had to work their way in to the Busch Grand National, and then they worked their way into the Winston Cup. And that's the way the majority of them come up.
But you can rest assured that it's a tough road to try to get to the top. We have a phone call from Lewis from Patterson, New Jersey. Go ahead, Lewis.
Oh, Richard.
Hello.
I just want to wish you luck. And my question is, if it comes down to 1 or 2 laps left in a race, and you're racing maybe DW or your son, do you think they'll let you go by them?
Yeah. No, I tell you what, it's tough. It's tough business, and nobody lets nobody have anything, whether it's blood kin or anything else. Everybody does. It's so hard to get in the circumstances to win a race anyway, and nobody's going to give anything back.
Susan from Memphis, Tennessee, in the audience here has a question.
Hi, Richard. I just wanted to ask if you and Ned ever bumped into each other on the racetrack.
Well, not intentionally, okay? I'll put it that way. Yeah, we've had a couple of run-ins, but nothing really that drastic. I've had a lot of run-ins with a lot of other people, but I think Ned and myself might have had 1 or 2 incidents, but it was over with the next week, so nothing that lasted very long.
I tell you, when we raced, as you said earlier, sometimes 50 to 60 times per year, and many of those races were on dirt tracks and short asphalt tracks, and if you're racing competitively, you're going to get into each other.
You're just going to get it no matter what. But what we used to do, as you remember, just telling the audience, that we would go to, say, on a northern tour and be gone for like 2 or 3 weeks and run 5 or 6 races. We'd run a 1/5 of a mile asphalt. We'd run a road course. We'd run half-mile dirts. You know, run Trenton a mile and a half. It didn't make it, you run the same car. So we couldn't go knocking on each other too much because we had to run the next race. And even when we did that, then my crew and his crew would travel down the road. They'd stop and they'd work on the car together. They'd borrow tires, borrow pieces, spark plugs, or whatever it was. They worked together. Me and Ned might be over in the corner fighting, but they was out there working on the car together. So the comradeship now is not there that used to be because of the sponsorship and the money and all other deals. So it's just really a whole new world out there.
Well, it is a new world out there now. The business end of it has changed drastically since the days when we first started. Actually, I started racing about 6 months after Richard did in NASCAR Winston Cup racing, and here he is just going to retire at the end of this year. Richard, our time's up, unfortunately. We really appreciate you coming and being with us here on our first live edition of Inside Winston Cup Racing. We'll be back on live March the 1st after the Rockingham, North Carolina race, and also on March 22nd after the races at Martinsville, Virginia. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to the audience here at Daytona Beach, Florida for joining. We'll see you here on a regular edition of Inside Winston Cup Racing next week.
Inside Winston Cup Racing has been brought to you by coal-filtered Miller Genuine Draft and Miller Genuine Draft Light, taking the country by storm. And by Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. Inside Winston Cup Racing Live was provided facilities for production and accommodations by the best.
All the highlights of the day.